सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति। The interaction between the subject and the object creates perception. So the subject here means the thought, means the thought of the object. And what is object? Object is the qualities. Uparasaganta, karma guna. These are the qualities. Qualities of the object exist in the object, and correspondingly thought of that object exists in the mind. When this thought meets the object out there, there is a perception. That perception is what gives us the knowledge of the world. That is how we get to know of the existence of the world. Actually, we are studying the other way around. Okay, we have already seen it. Now we are trying to understand how that is happening. So here, this knowledge of the world that we derive from the perception, along with that knowledge, we get one more thing gets added to that. That is, we start believing in the reality of the world. Meaning, we believe in the reality of the constituent of the world. What is the constituent? There are two constituents of the world, of perception. What are they? Subject and object. Therefore, along with the perception, we gain knowledge. Along with that knowledge, we gain one more knowledge. One more factor gets added to that. That is, we start believing in the reality of the world. Now the question comes to us is, from where does that sense of reality gets attributed to the world? Right. Sense of reality is not falling into the domain of our perception. Isn't it? That everybody knows. And your thoughts also doesn't fall into the category of reality. Taking into consideration, reality means that which persists, that which is constant. That's called real. Basic property, basic quality that we expect out of reality is, to qualify something to be real, we say it must be consistent. Now, is there any consistency of the thought? Is there any consistency of the properties, of the qualities of the object? The qualities of the object keeps changing. The thought of the object also keeps changing. Both are changing, which means both are not consistent. When these two inconsistent factors join together, produces something that we believe to be consistent. Correct. This is the context of the study of theory of perception. This is the broad framework, remember. If you miss the framework, we will miss the entire idea. So this is the context. So we are not worried about perception actually, remember. We are more concentrating with reference to the assertion that we get, the belief, a strong idea that we have along with the perception that it is real. Now, Vedanta asks that question first. You miss something from where it is coming. The theory of perception gives answer to that. From where you are getting this notion? Because the reality is the substratum on which it is standing. The thought is standing on reality. The qualities of the object standing on reality. Since both are standing on reality, there cannot be two different realities. There cannot be one reality for thought, one reality for object. Those two realities has to be one common platform. Because it is common alone, we are able to have the interaction between the thought and the qualities of the object to create perception. These are the two basic ideas we derive out of it. So from where you are getting it, this is the fundamental question we asked. Second question we ask here is, thought is insubstantial, the object is outside you, thought is inside, object is outside. Right? How can something which is perpetually inside, object which is perpetually outside, but they meet? How is it possible? See, once in a while, this fellow should go out, or that fellow should come in to meet, isn't it? This is the logic we give. Anvaya Vyatireka, they say. Perpetually mind is inside only, no. Have you ever felt the mind is moved away from you? No, sir. Mind is inside only. Mind is not moving outside. Nor the object has entered inside you. Imagine the entire landscape has to enter inside you. There is a place. There's no space inside you. So, mind has not moved out, nor the object has entered, but then they are meeting. What is that? Because one is for sure. For both of them to meet, either mind should go out or object should enter inside. This is the rule. Like a boy and a girlfriend. Isn't it? Either Romeo has to come into Juliet's palace or Juliet has to go to Romeo's palace. Romeo perpetually sitting in his palace, Juliet perpetually sitting inside her palace, but then they are meeting. It's impossible. How that is happening? First question. Second question we ask here is, sir, how is it that it is meeting me? There has to be a common platform. what is facilitating the meeting to happen, and from where we are getting the sense of reality to the existence of thought, existence of object, and existence of perception. All three are getting this sense of reality. From where that is coming? Like that, there are many questions. For all those questions, there is no satisfactory explanation we get from either idealism or from realism. Only Vedanta is able to give a satisfactory explanation for it. Remember, that is called a theory. Theory will explain, will provide certain explanations to certain conditions, certain experiences, certain facts. What is it, sir? Theory will give an account of it. That's about it. If we say, there is a progression happening, sir. Birds. This is what Darwin did. He started investigating very many birds and their beaks. How their beaks have been changing over a period of time. Over a period of time, certain things has developed certain features in that. Feathers had become wings. Some of them have started growing hair. Some of them started shedding hair. Why all this is happening, sir? All this is gradually growing. So this became that, that became this must have become this, because this is a more evolved position. This is a more advantageous position than the previous position. For it to propagate, for it to survive. And essentially, one thing is for sure. What? All species want to survive. All species want to propagate. This is the basic hypothesis. Right. From there he starts analyzing. This is how we have the entire idea. There he builds and says, we are evolutes of monkeys. But then there is a intermediate link is missing. We don't know what happened to that intermediate link. From monkeys it must have developed into some other species. From there we must have evolved. For whatever reason, either this species must have completely swallowed the whole thing, or some natural calamity we should have destroyed. That link is lost. And this evolution takes, this process of changing takes thousands of years. It's not going to happen in 1 or 10-15 years, every 20 years and all that. You can't account it like that. This is a satisfactory explanation we have. That is why we take Darwin's theory of evolution to be a very strong theory, because it explains. It is accounting for so many things. Similarly, this Vedantic theory of perception accounts for many things, which either idealism or realism are incapable of providing a satisfactory explanation. That's why we say this Vedantic theory of perception is a superior theory, much more stronger theory than these two. But a lot of people believe Vedantic theory is also a form of, a kind of idealism, they say. But Vedanta says, no, it is not, it doesn't belong to either idealist or it doesn't belong to realist. It is totally a different one from these two. How whatever object existing out there, there is a corresponding thought existing in your mind. There is no object exists outside in the world which the corresponding thought not there. It is not possible. Why it is not possible according to Vedantic theory of perception? It says go back to the basic material made up of. What is the world made up of? World is made up of the panchbhootas. It's a combination of the 5 great elements: space, air, fire, water, earth. These are the 5 great elements, panchbhootas. The same panchbhootas were the one in a grossified form created the physical body and the world. The same panchbhootas in the tanmatra state, without division, pure space, pure air, pure fire, pure water, pure earth, combined to form the subtle body, which is the mind, which is a thought. Your thought is made up of what? The same panchbhootas. All this, a student who is studying the theory of perception should have been familiar with. Okay. Now we cannot go back and ask this question. Just from what is that? Now for the reference, I will tell you. There is a text called Panchikarana itself, explaining the whole proper process, but it is referred in the text by Shankara in Atmabodha. The process of Panchikarana is a process through which the tanmatras, the subtle form of the Panchabhutas, grossifies to become the objects. So, the objects which is made up of the material and the thoughts that is made up of the material, same material. Therefore, what is outside corresponds to what is inside. Because all the objects that you can think of, all the qualities that you can think of, all that is possible covered within these 5 elements. Right? Don't say, sir, in the organic chemistry we have studied the things are not, don't ask here. Okay. We are studying Vedanta. We are not studying chemistry here. There we are having, in the table we are having 143 elements are there, 127, I don't know whatever the number is. Some numbers they say, and they have added also a few now recently. 127 elements are there, sir. Now as far as we are concerned, we don't care about those elements and all those things. And it is so interesting, even there when you see, even in the tab, this you say, okay, essentially what are they? You say that all this is nothing but carbon only. Isn't it? All carbon only, it's only a permutation combination, that's all it is. Various permutation combination produces these things, that's all. But that apart, what is interesting here is, say, how we are able to establish this. Because they say, look at the material, don't look at the permutation combination. A flower rose is totally different from lily, which is different from jasmine, which is totally different from a pine tree, different from stone. The properties of stone, properties of a rock is totally different from the properties of a flower. Correct. But if you essentially look into what is it made up of, you will find it has only this 5 elements. Since that is also having the same 5 elements, this is also having the same 5 elements, there is a matching. Otherwise, the matching is not possible. So that is how Vedanta establishes that whatever the objects out there, there is a corresponding thought you have to have. Sir, how does a person know what all the objects there in the world? How do we know? You may not know exactly the name of that object. Okay. If you go to a Brahmin, these rituals they are doing, they will suddenly ask, Panchapatra bring. Right? Panchapatra. They say. Now, Pancha means what? Panch means 5. The fellow says, okay, I have to go and get 5, patrams or what? It is not 5, man, it is just 1. And that's too a small one, that is. Not a big one, it's just a small one. They just bring. They call it as Panchapatra. See, you may not know the name. Panchapatra means this. You see, that may not be the case. You may not know the exact meaning of the word. Because that is a question of our convenience. For our interactions, we have given a name to that object. We have referred a name to a rose. Why we have given it, who has given that name, nobody knows. Who decided to call this as jasmine? Who decided to call? Even if you go, sir, etymologically, this is what it means. Now, my question is, who decided that etymology? So, if that one man decides, all of us have to follow, sir. Why then? This is the names were given by us to that object. You see, name is we have given to it. Inherently, the object doesn't carry name. Inherently, jasmine carries a fragrance. Inherently, jasmine has a particular texture. Because of the play of light, there is a particular color that it gets. A leaf gets one color, the flower gets another color. Because of the play of light or whatever you say. My question is, but the color is where now? It is there, but it is leaf. This is flower. Is it inherent in that? You say no. It is given by all of us. So when we are discussing here, we will say thought of flower, thought of a stone, thought of a book. Right. Now this word, book, flower, all this, in a particular language we have that. But perception was happening even before languages, no? Isn't it? Perception was done by people who have, because language got evolved much later. Whether perception came first or the language came first. A caveman has not developed a language, but he is able to perceive a lion pouncing on him, isn't it? Sir, unless you have the thought of the lion, means a caveman doesn't know English language. Simha, he doesn't know Sanskrit. I don't know, whatever that is in Kannada language. Each language has, one word. I think it's the same term. Language came later, no? Perception happened before. Then what is the thought that we are referring here? We are not referring to that. We are referring to the capacity of the mind to focus at a point. That is referred as thought of the flower. That's what he is explaining here in this paragraph. quality attribute of the flower exists in the flower as the object. Thought of the flower exists in the mind as the subject. What is the thought of the flower? Thought of the flower. English language. Perception was happening even before English language. Then what was there in his mind then? It is not that, please. What is referred here is the mind should be actively focusing itself on that object, onto something. If the mind is not actively moving, now when we are studying, each one of us were standing where we are discussing this entire theory of perception, and all this analysis were done as an individual. So we stand here as a subject, right? You are not an object. You never study theory of perception from the point of view, believing yourself to be the object, isn't it? So far we have been discussing, have you ever thought yourself to be an object? You say, sir, no, I am the subject. When I say mind, immediately you identify yourself with mind, or you identify with yourself as object? Are you subject or object? According to you. According to me, you are object. That's not the question here. The question here is, according to me, what I am? I am the subject. Since the whole discussion is done assuming a position of a subject, to follow carefully. We are studying this theory of perception. Anytime you work, anytime you think of perception, always you take yourself to be the subject. And anything other than you becomes object. Everything other than you becomes object. So I am the subject, everything else is object. Right? Including my dear, near and dear ones. Also objects only. They are not sub-object. They are also object. Since we are studying it from this side, we can understand only what is happening from inside out. So inside out, what is happening? Now I am giving explanation why people believe Vedantic theory of perception also a form of idealism. Because we also discuss from the subject's point of view only. Why we are discussing that is because when you are discussing here, you believe that. Then we project and say, your mind needs to be focused on something. To put it in a poetic language, they say, your mind goes and sits on that. When your mind goes and perches on the particular object, that perching, that movement, what is going out, not your entire mind is gone there outside. Because if it goes and sits there, again it has to be pulled back and placed on something else. Again it has to be pulled back and placed on something else. Unless this mind is pulled out of something and placed on something, switching over from one perception to another perception is not happening. Now you are listening to the class. Turn to your right and see what is there. right? You turn to right and see, which means you have to take your eye out of the screen and go there. Isn't it? What is directing that? The wall there, the TV there, the showcase there, the sofa there, they are not drawing my attention. It is the mind given instruction. It says, take out of this and place there. Only then the perception happens. So what is happening, as it were, from inside? We are all sure about this part of it. What is it, sir? The mind is moving from inside, goes and sits outside. Since we discuss from this angle, it will appear as though Vedanta is presenting, talking from the subject's point of view. Therefore, we believe Vedanta is also a kind of idealism only. Oh, Vedantic master says, no, man. I'm not an idealist. Why? Because I am discussing to you from the subject's point of view, because you have assumed yourself to be the subject. When you see the same thing from the object's point of view, what the object will say? Object says, I send out the stimuli. The sound vibrations sent out from the world enters through the ears, goes to the sense center, indriya, draws the attention of the mind to focus on that. Right. So one angle, what is happening? Mind is going out and purging itself, sitting on the object. Another aspect is the object is entering through the stimuli. Mind is going out in the form of a thought and sitting on that. The object is entering through the stimuli. Object is not entering. The stimulus enters and draws the attention of the mind, and then the mind goes and purges on the object. Perception happens. This is from the object's point of view. From the subject point of view, again we will say what? Yes. But then, mind has a choice to ignore the call of the stimulus. Isn't it? You can send an appeal, but whether your appeal is going to be accepted or rejected is not in your hands. Similarly, the object can send a stimulus, but it is the mind that is choosing and fixing itself onto something. So when it is fixing on that, there is a thought. That is what is referred as thought of the flower. So when you are perceiving the flower, we say thought of the flower. Instead of a flower, if you were to be having a stone, instead of a flower, there is a stone there, let's say, then what you will see? There is no matching. You see, you are having the thought of the flower. What is object is what? Stone. All of us can relate to this. Very easy. Many times when your mind is occupied with some thought, right? A person is standing right in front of you. You don't hear. A child that is totally engrossed in the TV. Nowadays I can't say books. Earlier I used to give example of books. You're lost in the books, reading. You don't hear the call. Now you are engrossed in you don't hear the call. Why? The object, the properties, the qualities is not matching. Therefore, there is not. I am having the thought of the flower, but the flower is absent. Can there be a perception? That we don't call as perception, that we call as hallucination. Isn't it? You say, sir, I have the thought of the flower, but there is no flower, but I am seeing the flower. What is it called? That's called hallucination. There is a flower, but I am having the thought of a idol, God. I give the example of stone. Take it as God. I am engrossed in the thought of God. What happens to me? I don't register. Why? The thought and object is not matching. That is why we are using the word thought of the flower. Okay? Don't take it literally as thought of the flower. Because many people make that mistake. They actually take it as thought of the flower. No, it's not the thought of the flower. When you say thought of the flower, what is the meaning of that? You should understand. What does it mean? It means there has to be a corresponding one. Then go back to the basic question we asked, which we have answered already. Sir, how can there be always, for all the object there is going to be a corresponding thought? For all the thought there is a corresponding object? We say yes. For all the objects there is a corresponding thought, but for all the thoughts there need not be a corresponding object. Converse need not be. Isn't it? Society. Not the T I am saying. Okay. There is sorry, I have to give another example. Crowd, culture, tradition, democracy. So many words are there, no? All these are thoughts only, no? Is there a corresponding object? Huh? Where is object called? Society. There's no such thing called society. There is no such thing called culture as an object existing for you to perceive. I wanted to meet Government of India. Let's go on. What do you mean? No, I want to meet the government. Where is it? I say, Government of India, Parliament. Another 2 years, the building will be there. Government is not there. You demolish the Parliament building. Does it mean Government of India gone? They have built a better one and they have moved there. Isn't it? Where is Government of India? For all objects, remember, we are discussing perception. Perception of what? Perception of the objects, the world. And we are trying to account for it. We are not discussing culture here. Because culture is not something which is perceptible. Government of India is not a perceptible. You cannot say it is the Prime Minister, it is not the Chief Minister. I want to meet the Prime Minister. You can say. You cannot say I want to meet a Prime Minister. But always you will meet only a Prime Minister. Why? Today it is Modi. Right. About 10 years back, Manmohan Singh. 15 years back, 25 years back, 35 years back, somebody else. So, you meet that person, but you call as what? I am not meeting Mr. So and so. Manmohan Singh is there even today. You can go and meet him. But that doesn't mean you are meeting Prime Minister. Okay. This is Prime Minister, no? No. He was Prime Minister then. Now he is not the Prime Minister. Which means, is he Prime Minister or not? Remember this. For all objects, there is a corresponding thought. That is why we say thought is subtler, more pervasive. That's why we say tanmatra panchbhootas are more encompassing. That is far more subtler, bigger. The thought world is far, far bigger than the object world. Stula prapancha and nama prapancha. There are two types of prapanchas, they say. Stula prapancha is very small. Nama prapancha is very, very big. What is nama prapancha? Thoughts. For every corresponding, there is a thought. But not necessarily for every thought there has to be a corresponding object. Don't say immediately, the reverse also happens. Reverse need not. Why? Because thoughts are subtler than the objects. Objects are gross, thoughts are subtle. Thus we account for all these things. So we have explained what is the basic idea, and then this, then this. So many ideas we have seen. Now we are moving to the most important idea. These are all the basic explanations as to explaining the completeness of theory of perception propounded by Vedanta. Right. Now we move to if I remove all the thoughts, if all the objects were removed, which means all the qualities, object is defined by the qualities it has, isn't it? Depending on the qualities of what is differentiating a jasmine from a rose is the qualities of it, the shape of it, the color of it, the fragrance of it, the growth of it, for what you use. Valentine's Day, you can't carry 3 jasmine and give. Right? You have to carry rose only and give. 3 roses you can carry and give. So the utility of that is different, this is different. Suppose if you remove all the qualities, what happens? Outside. Similarly, inside if you come, if you remove all the thoughts, what happens? Prima facie answer will be nothing, isn't it? If I remove all the qualities, because what is defining the object is the qualities, presence of the qualities. If I remove the qualities, the object should disappear, correct? Then nothing will be there. Similarly, in the subject, in the mind, I remove the thoughts, mind disappears, subject disappears, nothing is there. So what happens? Nothing inside, nothing outside. Then we go to the fundamental problem. What? If this side is also nothing, that side is also nothing. From nothing, how can something come about? This we have already established in the previous chapter. Law of causation. Cause and effect. Something cannot come out of nothing. Correct. So, when you say nothing, it is not nothing. It is nothing with reference to what I know earlier. With reference to the previous state, it is nothing. But by itself, it is not nothing. There is something. There has to be something. It cannot be nothing. That something inside, that something outside is what is referred as Brahman, reality. X. The X inside, the unknown inside, the unknown outside are not two different unknowns. They are the same. Who says that now? After that, we have to just listen to whatever they say. Whatever the scriptures say, we have to listen. Correct, sir, only. Because we have no way of arguing with them. Right? But it is not like the argument provided by this Bratton Russell. It's not like that. The teacup argument. He says, between Mars and Earth, there is a teacup rotating. Like that he says, you people talk about God. Now I have already proclaimed, there is a teacup. Now, I cannot prove it. He says, forget about I can prove or I cannot prove. The point is, you can't disprove. Since you cannot disprove, what I claim is correct. They say, no. The onus is on the one who claims. Right? Onus to provide proof is from the person who is claiming it. Now, can we apply the same rule here to Vedanta also? Vedanta says, yes, I will give you proof. You don't have to worry. But I am not able to understand that proof. Vedanta says, that is not my problem. I am not able to understand. It's exactly like when you take a CT scan of your brain and the neurologist is explaining to you. Do you understand anything? You listen to everything and say, correct. Finally, you ask him what? There. Morning coffee kudikalama kudada? Tell me that. Our problem is nothing to do with what? Why? Not because we are incapable, we are not trained. Remember that. So Vedanta says, look here, I am providing an explanation, I am giving the proof. You are not able to understand the proof not because of anything else, because of the lack of training in that field. Like when you listen to this quantum mechanics or quantum physics, you don't understand what is it. At what point in the history of mathematics they introduced this imaginary numbers? Early mathematics are not given in earlier works of mathematics, if you see. Leonardo da Vinci's or these, those great mathematicians are not in equations. They are all in prose. His guru's mathematics works along, if you see, in Latin. They have this, I think in Italy. Yeah. It's all in prose. There's no equations. And this man started writing, things in poetry. Mathematics is given in prose and poetry, not in equations. Why they had to do like that, sir? Because there's lack of imaginary numbers. Imaginary numbers came much later. Equations came much later. They did not know how to extricate algebra from geometry. All this necessitated them to develop. Now, if that man were to come and read these works, he will not understand anything. Not because he is incapable. It is because of lack of training. Remember that. You need to be trained. And the training always has to be done in a systematic, sustained manner. You can't just say, one off from somewhere and pick up and say, I want to understand the whole thing, sir. That's not possible. So don't think Vedantic equations is like proclamation, is like the teacup argument of, Bretton Russell. It's not like that. It is a clear equation. So what is this? The thought of the flower means the conditioned consciousness. What is conditioned by I know? Thought is there in you. I know thought, which is what is referred as chit in a technical language, which is part of the mind, which is part of the subtle body, which is also a thought. When that thought gets concentrated onto something, it is registering the qualities of that object. Because the object has those qualities, there is perception, there is a knowledge of I am seeing the tree, I am seeing the flower. Suppose if you remove the properties, the qualities there, if you remove the thought out of the mind, you remove the properties and qualities out of the object, is it nothing? Vedanta says cannot be. It is not. There is something which is standing as the foundation. That foundation is what is referred as Brahman. So, the entire study is given to us. Yeah, you can read now.
Page 300. The Vedantic theory reaches further to establish the underlying reality in both. The supreme reality, Brahman, is all-pervading. It exists everywhere, in the subject and the object. The object flower has certain quality, which is variable, changing. Take away the quality from the flower, what lies beneath is not zero, not nothing, but the changeless reality. The quality is the structure, the reality the substratum. The union of the structure and substratum is the flower. Similarly, the reality lies beneath the subject, beneath the thought of the flower as well. Thus, the reality, Brahman, supports the subject and object, the thought of flower and quality of flower. These facts defined and brought together gives the mathematical equation for the world. Let the quality of flower be represented by QF and the underlying reality by B. Then the equation for the object flower will be QF plus B, which is the quality of flower and the underlying reality put together. Take the example of another object, a pen. The pen has its quality. Let the quality of pen be represented by QP. The reality is the same, B. Then the equation for the object pen will be QP plus B. Similar equations can be made for the countless objects of the world, and the whole object world perceived will be the aggregate of the qualities of all objects of the world and the reality. Let the entire range of objects of the world be marked O1, O2, O3, etc. The qualities of the objects be QO1, QO2, QO3, etc. The underlying reality B. Then the equation for the object world for the entire perceived world will be QO1 plus QO2 plus QO3, etc. plus B. The subject is the mind. It consists of various thoughts. The thought of flower, thought of pen, thoughts of the entire range of objects of the world. When all thoughts are removed from the subject, what remains is not zero, not nothing, but the underlying reality.
Continue.
Let the thought of the flower be represented by TF, the underlying reality by B. Then the equation for the subject flower, that is, the thought in the subject mind reacting with object flower, will be TF plus B. Similarly, let the thought of pen be represented by TP, reality by B. Then the equation for the subject pen, that is, the thought in the subject mind reacting with the object pen, will be TP plus B. Again, the entire range of objects is O1, O2, O3, etc. And the thoughts of objects TO1, TO2, TO3, etc. Reality B. Then the whole subject mind perceiver would be the aggregate of the thoughts of all objects of the world and the reality. The equation for the whole subject, the entire mind perceiver of world, will be TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3, etc. plus B. The Vedantic theory states the perception of the flower is a result of the combination of the subject and object, the union of thought of flower and quality of flower, TF plus B and QF plus B. Therefore, the equation of the flower is TF plus QF plus B, and the equation of the pen TP plus QP plus B. Likewise, the equation of the phenomenal world will be the combination of the thoughts of objects and qualities of objects and Brahman, the combination of the entire subject and object and Brahman. Therefore, the mathematical equation of the world will be TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3, etc. plus QO1 plus QO2 plus QO3, etc. plus B.
This is the equation. Since the author is having the background of mathematics, he gives us to a mathematical equation explaining the theory. So you just have to go through this in the same order, not a complicated one, very simple actually. It cannot be more simplified than this. This is the most simplified possible way of explaining the theory. The quality of flower plus the thought of flower. PF plus QF plus Brahman. Because Brahman is the substratum. Because without that substratum, they cannot stand. They cannot exist. Neither the thought of flower can exist, nor the quality of flower can exist. Therefore, you cannot take Brahman out of equation. You have to include Brahman in that equation. So, what is the structure? The structure is this. Structure is the perception. The foundation, the substratum is the supreme reality, Brahman. Now, how is it that this is where we need to have this reality Brahman? Why we need to have Brahman there? Why can't we just say common? No, in mathematics usually we remove no common. Why we are adding here? Isn't it? Generally equation, no, they do. This side also is there, constant. This also constant, that also constant. Constant, cancel, cancel, cancel. And move out. Easier, no. You say, no, you cannot do that here. Because we saw that earlier, that your thought moving out, also the object entering through stimulus. So, there is a form of liveliness comes into picture in the subject, also in the object. There is a sense of life. We see action, movement, which we have seen earlier as action is the insignia of life. This is the first, Balapada we call as in Vedanta. Certain things are, Balapada, elementary education. Stress is within. Balapada. We don't bring all these discussions here in these heights. Elementary. In that elementary study, we have seen what is it? Action is the insignia of life. Now we saw qualities moving, changing, entering, calling for attention, all that is happening. Also we see there is liveliness with reference to the thought also. We ask the question from where that liveliness comes to alive. We feel it is alive. From where that comes? From where the sentiency comes into the otherwise insentient panchbhootas. Because we say primarily object is made up of what? Panchbhootas. What is it? Space, air, fire, water, earth. Is it sentient? There is no sentiency to it. Similarly, to the Tanmatra Panchbhootas also is not having sentiency. There is no life to it. It is inert, lifeless. A lifeless Tanmatra, thought, subject, appears to be alive, moving out and going and enveloping the object as it were. Also, the object which is lifeless, drawing the attention of the mind. From where it gets that power? You say it is because it has a close association with the reality. Brahman, which is the life lending principle, the sentient principle. Since it is closely associated with that, so close that you cannot segregate it. They can never be separated. This accounts for two things now for us. What is it? One, why we need to add. Number two, we understand from where it gets the power to move. Because movement is life. But you only said it is belonging to this Panchbhootas. Panchbhootas means they are inert, no. How can an inert combination, permutation combination, suddenly it becomes lively? How is that possible? Lifeless cannot produce life, but it appears. How? Because of its association, we said. That is why you cannot delete Brahman out of equation. It is mixed in that. Therefore, we derive that equation. What is the equation of the perception of the world? He has given that clearly to us. What is it? TO1 plus TO2 plus TO3, etc. plus QO1, QO2, QO3 plus Brahman. Don't miss that. If you miss that B, you are finished. Right? So Brahman is the Adhara, the foundation. And also it is Brahman that gives sentiency to the otherwise insentient this. And then you can give examples. Then after that it's very simple for us to give examples for that, to explain. There is no light in the bulb. The bulb is able to give light. Why? Because of the electricity. It is electricity that gives the power to the bulb to give light. Same way, a lifeless thought, a lifeless mind. Don't say mind has life. This is what idealism will say. Vedanta says no. Mind also is lifeless. Object is also lifeless. Subject is lifeless. Object is lifeless. But both appear to be alive. There is tremendous sentiency. How? How that gets that sentiency? From where that comes? Because of its close association with Brahman. Why Brahman is associating with these people so close? By default. Why? By very definition, Brahman is all-pervading. Since Brahman is all-pervading, it will be in close association with the subject and it will be in close association with the object. And by nature, what happens? When you associate with something closely, you start reflecting that quality of it. The quality of Brahman is what? Life. It is a life principle. Since it is a life principle, since it has energy in it, life in it, etc. I didn't want to use the word energy and all that, but you just keep it. There's a lot of people think energy, immediately you go to some, weird ideas. No. Not that, please. By itself it is not having. Then from where it is getting? It's getting because of its close association. And this he is explaining with 4 examples. Right? Very simple examples. But gradually he develops the idea. In the 4 examples, idea gets further developed. Right? Go through the equation again. Right? And read through. And those who are not having the book with them, you better get the book. If you are not able to get the book, then you can, I don't know how you listen to the reading. Fairly you have done a good job, except only one, slip. Because reading this is not an easy thing, equation. Thanks for that, good reading. That is, listen to that again. I'm sure all of you must be having a book with you. Have a book with you, go through that slowly, again, and remember the points. We'll see the details in the next class.